Welcome to the New Life Church Letchworth podcast, where faith meets everyday life and hope is always within reach. We're so glad you're here. Each week we gather to grow, to learn, and to be inspired. And whether you're part of our church family or listening from afar, this space is for you. A place to be encouraged, challenged, and reminded that with Jesus, there was always a new beginning. So get ready, open your heart, lean in, and together let's discover a life worth living.
Good morning. Woo! And we're back. Hey, grab a drink, grab a seat. Welcome, welcome. If we have not yet met, my name is Joel, and it is absolutely a joy to be together. Good morning. I heard somebody say hello. Good morning. It's great to be here. Happy New Year. Yeah. It is great to be together. Genuinely, it's great to be together. It's great to be together. And we are genuinely glad you're here. Genuinely. We're glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Woohoo! We're genuinely glad to be together. There's this thing that we say, and whether you have tracked with New Life Church for a while, or if this is your first time, whether in the room or online, one of the things we say is, wherever you are on your journey of faith, we're going to walk with you. We're here to walk with you. We believe faith is a journey. It's something we're all still learning, growing. We're still becoming more like Jesus. We're still learning to follow Jesus. All of us are. And wherever you are on your journey, we're here to walk together. But where are we going? You can do this, which is movement. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this is movement. But I'm not getting anywhere. It's like being on a roundabout and just staying on a roundabout. I'm doing lots of driving, but I'm not getting anywhere. So it's important to know what it means when we follow Jesus, that it's intentional, it's purposeful. It's not just busyness. There's an intention to it. And as we started this year, we thought, let's talk about how God has a plan and a purpose for our lives. And let's just take a moment to reflect again, maybe to step back a bit, and especially as we're starting Alpha, and especially as we start the year. Let's take a step back and remember how faith grows for people, how faith grew for us, and maybe how faith is growing for you. Let's just take a moment to remember how relationships grow. On the first date, if anybody here had a date? Years and years ago. No kidding. You've been on a date with somebody, and just imagine you're sitting there and you think this is it's first time, right? First, it was a little bit awkward, and how are you, and da-da-da-da. And 3 questions in, they say to you, so how many kids would you like when we get married? You're like, oh, okay, it's a bit too much, too soon, too fast. And relationships take time because we have to build trust. We have to be able to ask some questions. We have to be able to work through some uncertainties. And if relationships work that way, then we must remember that faith works that way too, because faith is ultimately, more than anything, it's a relationship with the living Jesus. So let's just take a moment as we start the year, and maybe you've been a follower of Jesus for a long time, and this is the kind of this to you is just like, well, yeah, I know all this stuff. But the reason we're pausing for a moment is just to make sure that we lay the groundwork for the culture that we want to be as a local church. So this is what we're doing this morning. That's a kind of a little bit of an introduction. But see, when Jesus has this plan and this purpose, God's plan and purpose is to transform the world. And he does it one heart at a time. He does it through one life at a time. But his ultimate purpose is to restore and redeem everything, is to repair that which is broken, if you like. And when you say to Jesus, I'm in, count me in, It's saying to him, count me into your plan, count me into your purpose. I want to be part of what you're doing. It's not just busyness or movement for movement's sake. It's purposeful and intentional. So when we say, count me into Jesus, we're taking a step in. We're moving into that. So over the next 3 weeks, we're just going to reflect a little bit and start something. And I want to look at a way to explain this process, if you like, maybe just as a pathway. And talk about A, B, and C. It'll be easy to remember. If you know your alphabet, you've got it. A, B, C. A, attending and accepting. B, belonging and believing. C, community and connecting. Now, this is not a hierarchy. This is a pathway, okay? This is not status and kudos, and the greater you move along down the letters, the greater value you become and the greater worth. No, please. This is just the position of heart. A, B, and C, attending and accepting, belonging, believing, community, and connecting. When you're in that place of A, sort of attending and accepting, it's sort of saying, I'm here, I'm present, I'm exploring, I feel safe. That's an important first step. The believing and belonging is, I feel at home and I trust who I'm with. I trust what I'm learning. It moves into trust. And then community and contributing is, I'm invested. I'm participating. I'm bringing to the table. I'm shaping what we do. I'm helping the plan and the purpose of God to move on. So a little stage, but we have to be very clear. I don't want any of us, because sometimes it's so easy, isn't it? We grade ourselves, and we do it in school, and we do it in work, and we have our performance reviews, and we can do it in churches as well. And we rate one another based on different types of performances. Please, please, please. This is not a hierarchy. This is not you become better as you go along, etc. This is the position of our hearts. Okay, so let's just be really, really clear about that. But think about it this way. It starts with curiosity, because have you ever seen there's a new cafe or a new shop that opens up? Maybe it's a gym, maybe it's a youth club, something starts, and you sort of hear about it. Maybe you see it on socials. Maybe you walking down the high street and you see that this vacant building is now going to become something, and you're sort of curious, and you walk past it, and then you see a little bit more, and then eventually, you decide to step in the door. You go in, and you see what it's about. And it starts with curiosity. And you're just checking it out. You're not against it. You're just kind of observing. And you're not sure about everything, but you're just open to what they have to offer. And faith begins the same way. Not with certainty, not with confidence, but rather with curiosity. And how do we know that this is Jesus' heart? How do we know this? Because when we read the Gospels, when we read the eyewitness accounts, Matthew, Mark, and John, when we read their eyewitness accounts, Luke wasn't with Jesus. He wasn't an eyewitness account of the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But Matthew, Mark, and John were followers of Jesus, and they wrote about their firsthand eyewitness experiences. And John writes in John 1, he writes about an account that happened at the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. And John the Baptist had some followers with him, some disciples also. And John the Baptist, he's with two of his disciples, and he sees Jesus walking past. And he says to his disciples, he goes, "Look, the Lamb of God." Oh, there he goes, the Lamb of God. Yeah. And then when they heard this, they decided to follow after him. Next verse, and it goes, Jesus turns around and he sees them following him. Okay, this is kind of sketchy, isn't it? He says, it's like, wait, are you following me? And then he turns around and he's like, you guys are following me, right? And he's like, what are you after? What do you want? What are you looking for? What do you want, right? What are you looking for? What is it? And they say to him, teacher, where are you going? And this is the first time he tells anybody or invites anybody to do anything. Jesus says to them, come and see. Come and see. It starts with an invitation. Come and see. He meets two people who are totally curious and unsure. They're loitering at a distance. They don't know what's going on. They don't know where he's going. They don't really know who he is. They've got lots of questions. And their curiosity is piqued. They wonder what's going to be happening. And Jesus doesn't turn around and say, well, first, I just got to make a few things clear. You want to follow me? You want to go where I'm going? You want to know more about me? There's a few things you need to do first. For starters, I don't know what you're wearing, because it's just so last season, right? Right? And I'm not really sure if you're asking me who I am, if you really have enough understanding of who I am, and if you don't know who I am, then you can't actually come with me yet. So you can't really follow me yet. You can't go where I'm going, because come back in a couple months, you in a couple years, but you can come back in a couple months when you've got some things sorted and figured out. Rather than lecturing, rather than demanding, rather than expecting performance, he welcomes curiosity. They don't really know what they're getting in for. They don't really understand. Even though they're longing for faith, they're longing for this Messiah, they don't understand who he really is, what he's really going to do. Die. They don't understand what his mission really is. And in spite of all of their misunderstandings, he welcomes curiosity. Faith begins with curiosity. That's why we want to push Alpha. Alpha begins with curiosity, people having questions. We want to invite the curious rather than demand the, sorted. We want to invite the curious rather than make demands and expect the competent. We want to invite the curious. And sometimes we can underestimate how much courage it takes for some people to just show up. I'm a fairly confident, outgoing person, okay? I don't always get nervous going into a new environment. I just don't. It's just the way I'm wired, okay? And it can be easy to forget that for some people, just showing up is huge. It's massive. Because they've been thinking about it for months. Maybe they've been thinking about it for years. Maybe they've driven to the car park and not come in. Maybe they've done that 3 or 4 times. Maybe they've been watching online for a few months. We must never underestimate the first step is huge. And for some people, it is bigger than it is maybe for you. Because we're all made differently. We're all wired differently. God's made us beautiful, wonderful, unique creations. But for some people, the first step is huge. And let's never underestimate how much effort and courage it sometimes takes to show up. So if that's you, or if that's been you, we are so glad you're here. We are genuinely so glad you are here. Thank you. Well done. And wherever you are on your journey of faith, we are here to walk with you every step of the way. And you can stay in that place for as long as you need to. You can stay in that place because it's a safe place to explore. It's a safe place to ask questions. It's a safe place to learn. It's a safe place to decide whether you're ready to take the next step or not. And the person beside you might be ready quicker than you. That's okay. And the person beside you on the other side might be more hesitant than you. That's okay. Because faith is ultimately a relationship, and relationships take time. And authentic relationships are not based on abuse, they're based on trust. And so you move at your pace because Jesus invites you wherever you are, however curious and full of your questions, he invites you and gently invites you and coaxes you, if you like, to take a step to follow. But he allows you to move at your pace. And get this, he allows you to walk away. Doesn't want you to, but he allows you to walk away. But the first step for all of us is questions, curiosity. This is so cool. I think the first thing, God makes space before he makes demands. He says, come and see. Bring your questions, your doubts, your observations. Discover and find out more. Discover a life worth living. I mean, that's the kind of church we want to be. Okay? That's what we want to be. A place where everyone is safe to explore faith, to ask questions, to come back after many years. Maybe somebody's been in church and they've had a bad experience. They've been hurt, they've been wounded, they've been upset. And for whatever reason, they've decided to come back. Or maybe for whatever reason, they just drifted and wanted to come back. Have you got a child and that's the ache in your heart? Have you got a husband or wife and that's the ache in your heart? That they could find a church where they feel safe to take that first step again? Have you got a coworker or a colleague? Is there someone in your life that you care for? And more than anything, you hope, you pray to God that they will find a church somewhere, a community somewhere, where they will be able to just take that first step. Because attending is huge for some people. That's what I want. There's people in my life, I want them to feel loved enough and safe enough to just take that first step. That's the kind of church you want to be. That's what you want for your children, right? And your loved ones, your family members. It's huge. So attending is important. Attending is a meaningful step. Think about this. Here's an illustration. Think about how you first learn language. You listen and you learn. I don't know. Does anyone speak a different language? More than one language? A few people. You know, I did Spanish at school. And that was my best joke of the morning. Wow. Yes, I did go to school. Thank you. No. I did Spanish in school. That's what you do in America. Everyone learns Spanish. But there's only one language in the world, right? English and Spanish. Anyway. So we learn Spanish. And you learn it by listening and you hear it and it's repetition. And it's how we also learn to speak ourselves. Rather than it being a brand new language, it's our first language. We hear it, we learn it, the words begin to form, we begin to understand how to make the words, and we shape the words, and you don't speak right away. And in fact, you pronounce words wrong. When you're first trying, you say it wrong. And I was in Guatemala for a couple months on a missions trip, and I was 15 years old. And we went to Pizza Hut because, Pizza Hut. And so the guy that was with us said he would order the food. And he went to order the pizzas. He was going to order a ham pizza. Anyway, the word for jamón in Spanish is similar to the word for tuna in Spanish, okay? He got it wrong. We had 4 large tuna pizzas, which is disgusting. Okay, I mean, you might like tuna pizzas. Okay, that's cool. But when you're first learning a language, you get it wrong. You get it wrong. And the thing is, we have grace for people when they learn a language, and we have grace for our children when they're just crawling, and then they're learning to take first steps, and they're falling over, and we have grace, and it's understanding, and it's cute. But God forbid you get it wrong in church. Huh? Ow! We must remember that faith is something that grows and we learn and we develop over time. And we have to be able to have an environment where we are safe enough for people to make mistakes. That's what Jesus did for us, right? We make mistakes, and yet he still cares for us and invites us to follow him. And no one expects fluency on day one. Nobody. Nobody expects perfection on day one or day 300 or day whatever. You don't expect it right away. And God doesn't expect us to be perfect until we're in heaven. He who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it until the day he appears, it says in Philippians. So God does expect perfection. But you're only going to be perfect when you've made it to heaven. So we're all works in progress. We're all still learning. We're all discovering every day. We're all on that journey of faith. God doesn't rush you. God doesn't shame you. God is patient with your process. Just like when you learn a language, you have to listen and learn. Then you start to recognize the sounds and you start to understand the sounds. It's the same way with faith. You learn and you listen, you recognize and you understand, and you begin to develop more. And that's why the first position of our hearts is when we begin to attend regularly, we begin to learn more because we begin to hear more, we begin to understand more, we begin to recognize more. That's why attending is an important first huge step. It's the attending and accepting. The gathering and learning is a huge first step for all of us. And usually and hopefully it will lead to something more. Because if you're curious, curiosity usually grows, right? You ever found that you're interested in a subject, or maybe you're in school and they started talking about engineering or ancient history or some painter that lived at a certain time in a certain place in France, and it wasn't even the subject of the lesson, but all of a sudden it sort of piqued an interest in you, and you began studying it and researching it, or maybe you wanted to read a book about a certain author and you read more of their books, and curiosity grows. And it's the same with our faith as we start with curiosity and move in and learn more and more. And we have to remember as well that we are not products on an assembly line. Isn't that cool? You're not a product on an assembly line. You're a beautiful, living, breathing human being. And God's working with you wherever you are, on whatever stage you're at, whatever place you're at in your faith. He works with you. You're not on an assembly line. You're not a sausage factory, okay? Let me just give you a little personal story. My parents, this is about my parents. My parents did not grow up in a Christian household. They had no need to have faith. They'd gone to university. They'd had jobs. My dad's an engineer. My mother was a dental hygienist. They didn't need for anything. It wasn't like anything had happened in their lives. They got married. They then had me. And they had a neighbor, and they started talking to this neighbor, and they got on with this neighbor, and then talking questions. And these neighbors were Christians. And they invited them to a Bible study, and they invited them to a little social, invited them to a group, and that's how it began to start. And they began to ask more questions and find out more and more about it. And my mom was also an artist. She had done art school, and then, what do you do with art school? Well, qualify to be a dental hygienist, right? That's what she did. So, he didn't pay the bills. My dad was an engineer, so he's an engineer and a mathematician. So, of course, opposites attract, so they say. You have an engineer and an artist. So my mom was really open to the faith stuff that was going on, really open. And she got into it much quicker and much faster and much sooner than my dad did. My dad had a lot more questions. He wanted to know a bit more. Okay, is the resurrection really plausible? I mean, come on. Okay, you can go along with your church thing and you can understand. You like the feeling and the loo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo because you're an artist. But I'm much more clever than that. Okay? I'm not swayed by my feelings. I've got, there's processes. 2 + 2 is 4. I understand science and math. But he took some time. He took longer. And he read a book by a guy named Josh McDowell, which is a book he writes about. It's an apologetic book, which basically explains some of these things. And he was in an environment where it was safe for him to ask questions. And here's the thing. If the first community that my mom and dad encountered didn't allow them to have questions, didn't allow them to be safe and take steps, I wouldn't be here. My children wouldn't be here. Right? I can't see, maybe God could have worked it all out, of course. Okay, let's not deny God is sovereign. He could, of course, have done that. But practically, reasonably thinking, if the first encounter my parents had was a community that expected performance before acceptance, or change before acceptance, expected that they'd have it all sorted and have it all together and just get yourself tidied up a bit more before you actually can come along. Maybe if that had been the first type of community that they experienced and they encountered, I don't think they ever would have wanted to ever step foot in a church ever again. That's why I say, this is the kind of church we want to be. And it's okay, other churches can do differently. That's fine. This is what we want to be. A place that understands the first step is huge. And attending is just as important. The first step is huge. We want to cultivate curiosity. We want to cultivate safety. We want to cultivate a welcome that allows people to discover who Jesus is kind of at their pace, and trust that God, who loves them more than we do, will do the work in their lives better than we can. And so that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. And I don't know, maybe this is kind of like 101 for some of us. Maybe you're thinking, wow, why are we doing this? Because it's important as we start the year. This is what we want to look at. And God didn't love my mom more than my dad because she was quicker. And he wasn't disappointed in my dad because it took him a lot longer. Because it's a personal journey. And wherever you are on your journey of faith, we are here to walk with you every single step of the way. You set the pace. As a church, we set the direction, but they set the pace. Understand? We go at their pace, but we're not just walking in circles. That's aimless. There's a purpose. There's a plan. We set the direction, but they set the pace. We will go at the pace that everyone needs to go at. That's why things like Alpha are incredibly important. And hopefully you might be thinking of people in your life that you could invite to that, to bring them along. And as we get ready to close, we're going to look at this verse, which is cool because it was actually referenced in the worship we did this morning. And it's in Psalms 34, verse 8. And King David wrote this. He had a really rough time. And he wrote this song. It's like, this song is what it is. It's a song. And it's kind of well known. It's Psalms 34, verse 8. And it says this. He says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste and see that the Lord is good. What's cool about taste comes before certainty. Experience comes before explanation. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Every step matters. Every step of faith matters. And we want people to have an experience where they can taste and see that the Jesus that we are introducing them to is good. He's a good God. He's got good things for them. He cares for them. He loves them. He wants to change their life for the better because he's good. We want people to have an encounter where they can taste and see that the Lord is good. And that's what I want you to do as well. All of us, not just newcomers and new believers, all of us, that we would taste and see that the Lord is good. I hope you have an encounter and experiences with God where you discover that he is more than anything. He's good. He is good. I pray that we can be a place where we discover God is so, so good. Good, and that it builds trust, which empowers people to take the next steps, which is what we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks. The first thing Jesus said to people was, come and see. The next thing he said was, come follow. And we'll be looking at that over the next couple of weeks. But as we close, let me just pray for you. God, I thank you that you invite us and that your invitation is gentle. God, I thank you that this is a safe place to be, where we can listen and learn, where we can recognize and understand, where we can discover more about you. Help us to rest in your welcome. I thank you that you are patient with each and every one of us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's message. We hope you found it encouraging. Remember, no matter where you are on your faith journey, you are never alone. God is with you, and we are here for you too. If this message spoke to you, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to connect with us online or in person. You can find out more about New Life Church at nlcletchworth.co.uk. We'd love to see you soon. Until next time, keep walking in faith, living in hope, and loving like Jesus.